Welcome to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. Do you wonder how your faith fits together with your profession? Well, join us as we explore how to live well at the intersection of two roads crossing.
Hello and welcome to Two Roads Crossing. I'm your host, Curtis Gibbs, a pastor and CVM region rep. As we explore the intersection of faith and veterinary medicine. And today we're on the road with Dr. Rocky Lindsey. Rocky, welcome. Glad to have you today.
Thanks for having me.
Rocky, his background has been with CVM in various ways, but one of those includes being on staff with CVM as a region rep. Rocky, how about you tell us a little bit about that journey of connecting to CVM and being on staff with us for a while?
Okay. My first contact with CVM was in vet school. I went on a short-term mission trip, graduated from LSU in 1998, practiced in Arkansas. I know my accent doesn't sound Southern. It probably sounds Pacific Northwest, but that's a joke. But I'm from Arkansas, practiced for a while, and kind of left CVM kind of in the rearview mirror. But on two practices that suddenly had someone show up that potentially wanted to buy the practices and they weren't for sale. So we kind of laughed it off. And then 6 months later, we ended up handing them the keys. That's because we prayed about it, both sides. And that's what God told us to do. So it was kind of, what am I going to do when I grow up? You know, I just sold my practices and I was in my mid-40s at the time. And that introduced CVM back into the realm. We actually thought maybe God was calling us to be an international missionary. About a 2-year process figuring out that's not what God wanted us to do, but CVM was pretty intimately involved in that because I'm a veterinarian and CVM was missions based. And so got back involved in the organization, started doing some short-term trips again, and had met Glenn Gaines, which was the South Central region rep. Got to know him pretty well and told Glenn one day that, hey, I want to do your job one day, just kind of in passing. And then
I want to be you when I grow up. Too.
Yeah, exactly. And then about a year later, it came to fruition, and I was the South Central region representative for a few years.
Tell me, as you reflect on that season, and what did you love during that season of working with professionals and students? What were some things that stood out?
Well, my heart has always been for college ministry. I was deeply impacted by college ministry as a college student, set my course in the right direction. So I've worked with college ministry ever since I graduated college. My wife and I, Alicia, and I still do that today. And so whenever I became the region rep, my heart was for the college student. So that doesn't mean I forgot about the professionals, but I really enjoyed the interaction with the universities that I was associated with, especially with the student leadership in those universities. It led to some short-term mission trips with some of them, and really seeing CVM have an impact on their life like it had on my life when I was a college student was one of the most rewarding things. And I enjoyed, too, just CVM in general, just working with a Christian organization. You know, we're from all different walks of life, probably all denominations. I don't know what denomination you are, Curtis, and that's a good thing. You know, I've known you for years, but still Christ being the center. So I enjoyed that aspect of worshiping, and then just interacting with Christian veterinarians and veterinary professionals and veterinary students all over the country.
Well, let's think about that as a looking at the student world, and we'll have some upcoming podcast interviews with students. So it'll be interesting to hear from their perspective. But from your perspective, you've worked with various schools of CVM. You were connected as a student in a way to campus ministries, and those have been a big part of your life. Tell us what you're doing now. What's your role now, or roles, I should say?
So I'm still with CVM as an associate. So
right.
You can donate to my account if you'd like and help me go on another mission trip. Backed away from the region rep role strictly because God told me to. In fact, I pushed against that for a while. I enjoyed the the region rep role immensely. But my other job was as a professor at a local university, doing the pre-vet advising and being the coordinator for our agriculture program at the University of Arkansas at Monticello. And the Lord's called me into that more and out of the region rep role. And so I'm really blessed where I am. We have a lot of freedom to talk about the Lord and talk about ministry, and seeing the students on a day-to-day basis, you can have some pretty powerful impacts on them if you're intentional. My door is closed right now for this podcast. I'm at the office. That's the only time it's going to be closed. Otherwise, it's open because students are in and out all day, and a lot of these students come from broken homes. That's the norm these days. So having a father figure type influence is kind of my role, leading them to Jesus best we can. Just got back from a mission trip where one of my students got baptized. So that's what I'm doing now is teaching in that role, and then trying to impact these guys, and then also keeping my toe in the water for CVM, doing mission trips, going to conferences and real life, real impacts and things like that. As a region rep, the real life, real impact was probably the most impactful thing that I did as a rep, and working closely with the students where they hosted and hosting. When we hosted there, just those interactions are still special. I still have students that I love dearly that I worked with years ago that we keep up with each other on Facebook or text or things like that. So
I tend to agree. I mean, those concentrated times together aren't just a weekend together. They really are an introduction to life together. That sometimes we can complain about different things about technology, but there's some beautiful things about technology, which are being able to stay in touch with people despite physical distance. Yeah.
That's exactly right. I mean, I'm very thankful. Zoom was kind of a new thing when COVID hit, but it really let me make some connections that even there that are still solid today. And the phone, you've gotten these texts before. Oh, you good? I'll text 2 words to a lot of people a lot of times, and just checking in with them every once in a while can lead to some pretty impactful things. It's just good to know that people think about you too. It's good when I get those texts as well. Yeah, it's the world is smaller, but that's a good thing as far as relationships go.
Yeah, amen to that. Well, sticking with the student theme there, what you work with pre-vet some. So what are you seeing in these students? I mean, what are you seeing in the future of vet med possibly, or what do you see? How are you talking to these students about, discerning their future and if vet med is for them or not?
So it's a good question. So dealing with, there's a big difference between a pre-veterinary student and a veterinary student. The mentality is different, and that's because the ones that made it into vet school are the top of the class. They have this drive, and they have this stud like appeal to them.
Sure.
So the pre-vet students that I get, I looked at my roster. I don't know any of them. My classes start tomorrow here, and I've got 10 pre-veterinary students, freshmen, that I've never met. So I'll get to know them, and some of them, a lot of them, won't be pre-veterinary after a year or two. It's just you start weeding out that process. So with those students, you start, hey, what else can we do? How can what else can you do in life? How can you be successful? Because the Bible's full of work of encouraging us to work and be productive citizens, and just the day-to-day life is really how you impact people for God, and how your relationship grows. So how can we help those kids? And then the ones that have potential, CVM really allows me to pour into them because it gives them opportunities like the mission trips and the conferences. So we get to take these pre-veterinary students to these real life, real impact conferences. If they want to go. And we're not a Christian university, but we make no bones about it. It's a Christian conference. You're welcome to go. You don't have to go to any of the seminars if you don't want to, but it's at the vet school, and you get to meet people at the vet school. So they get to see those students hey, this is how I have to be in order to be successful. And they see the schools and make it a little bit less intimidating, maybe to go there later. And then also it offers them opportunities like mission trips and things, which really look good on a resume to when you're applying to veterinary school. So that's the pre-veterinary role that I see involved with our organization.
So you having your foot kind of in the, academic world, I believe there's possibly, in the upcoming release of 12 veterinary schools or so in the next years after not having as many in the previous decades. It's like there's a bunch rolling out. Some of those might even be coming to Arkansas. How do you see these vet schools, whether Arkansas or the others, just this kind of influx of several new vet schools? What is your view on this? Is it necessary, needed? How do you think this is going to impact the future of students and the profession?
It's a good question, and no one knows the answer. I have some opinions, but I mean, they're trying to fill a role, fill a need. It may be an over response. Arkansas's never had a veterinary school ever, and we have a shortage of veterinarians. But whenever we get 10 years worth of students, where are they all going to go? That's kind of a question everyone's asking. Down the road. When I graduated in '98, there was more veterinarians than needed, so starting salaries are lower. And then it reversed. I don't think it's going to be quite the problem that it was when I was in school, because the profession is female, and that's, I have no issue with females being a veterinarian. I mean, almost every one of my advisees is female, but not as many of those ladies want to own practices or work full time because they're going to have families and things. So I think there's still going to be gaps and needs for veterinary students, but it's an over responsible. We'll find out. It does do states like Arkansas a favor in that it was more competitive for a pre-veterinary student to get into vet school than medical school, for states like ours. So it makes it a little bit easier, and I think it makes a little bit more less likely to rely strictly on GPA as a cutoff, which is a good thing in my opinion. Your 4.0 students, if any of you are out there 4.0, not knocking you, I was an honor student, but they're sometimes less social skills, less ability to own practices, and your 3.5 student is the one that has more of the applicable needs. So whenever I'm talking to these veterinary schools about entrances, I'm telling them this, focus on the whole kid. And one thing that we do in our program is offer them so this is a plug for University of Arkansas Monticello, we offer them a big variety of animals to work with. We have an on-campus farm, sheep, goats, cattle, have a rodeo team. So we get them a lot of experience. So our students are well thought of when they get into vet school. They're pretty well rounded. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of students graduate here in the next decade.
5-10 years.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we'll see how it goes with how easy it is to find a job, and can they keep up with their debt load.
Yeah. Well, I try to, I think most of us listen, but some people watch on YouTube and such. And I try to throw something in the background for the guest that is here, but I couldn't find a boll weevil image. I believe that is the University of Arkansas Monticello's mascot. Is that correct?
Yeah, I can give you the cheers. Boll weevil sickle. But anyway,
I had to throw a camo hat in the background because I couldn't, and I got a short-term mission map, so that's for you there. But I couldn't find a good boll weevil image. So.
Yeah, so we're a small country. So ivermectin, Dr. Rocky, this is what one of my students gave me, but small college. But yeah, we're in cotton country, and the boll weevil decimated the cotton industry. So it's been eradicated, but it's still our mascot.
There you go. I grew up in South Georgia, so I certainly understand the boll weevil and the cotton situation too around there. So, well, listen, you talked about people coming to your door, and just, I mean, your role. One of them is advisors, but you have that heart to do that anyway. We might touch on this later about you owning clinics, but when a student, one of the things we hear from our students, and you're well aware of this too, is they want a mentor and mentee relationship out there. That's one of the things that they're looking for in employment. That's one of the things they're looking for in their professional growth. And so coming from somebody who does that, I think there's a lot of our veterinarians that would like to offer that, but how do you get trained? What advice would you give to someone who, wants to maybe carve out a role and mentor a new vet that they take on at the practice or whatever? What does that look like? I think we share that idea of I want a mentor or I want to be a mentor, but I think when we actually go to put meat on the bone, it gets, I don't think there's a clear path that everybody knows how to do that. So what's your thoughts there?
My responsibility just do it. We're all fallen. We all know our hiccups and screw ups, right? And hang ups. And so one is that's who God uses. So don't think that you're not available or not able, because that's exactly, I mean, you're hard pressed to find a biblical character that isn't known by his or her faults, so don't
One of the reasons I love the Bible, by the way, is like the Bible didn't whitewash itself, right?
No.
Like that's one of the reasons I believe it to be true, is because if you were gonna write that thing falsely, you would not list King David's things
Right.
and Solomon. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you can just get into Solomon and how he wasn't even the first son. The God intentionally picked the kid of the, adulterous relationship. So I mean,
Yeah.
God can use anyone. So do it. And two is get to know me, get to know people like me. If you want to and get to know students or mentor mentees, get to know the people that know them, and offer internships. I think that's one thing CVM does really well. And if anyone's listening to this and they don't have an externship listed on CVM's website, they should. One of the clinics locally here, the ones that I used to own, they've gotten really tied in with one university. One student just left, and these students spend 4 weeks. So give them a place. You don't have to, but I'm telling you, get them a place to stay. Make it attractive, and then you can really impact these students and just let them in your program as far as veterinary students and your pre-veterinary kids. Hire them as kennel workers. Hire them to be on staff as a veterinary assistant. And the way to know who to hire, I had to learn this as a business professional, is get to know your local universities, animal science instructors or agriculture instructors or pre-veterinary instructors or biology instructors and professors, so that they can tell you, yeah, this is who I see that could be potentially good for you. Because you want a good employee, and we're all thinking as business owners, if you're a business owner, who's going to replace me one day? Homegrown is one of the easiest ways to do this. So get to know me, and then just be willing, be real with them, be willing, and just, gosh, they watch. I had a student who was a pre-veterinary student who I hired first time I met her. Her name's Amber. Amber, if you're watching, you know this story. Amber, first time I met her, I fully remember going out of the room thinking that girl hated my guts. She didn't like me at all. That's just kind of the personality she had at the time. And then I found out she wanted to work at the clinic, and I was like, heck no, she's not working at my clinic. She's she's hateful. I didn't like her. She wasn't nice. And so a couple of staff knew her, checked up on her through the university, and yeah, she's a pretty good kid. So we hired her. My rule was keep her in the back, don't put her in front of clients. But anyway, she started working, and then over the course of a couple of years, she came up to me one day and said, "I want you to come to church with me on Sunday." And I said, "Why is that?" She said, "I just got saved and I want to be baptized, and I want you to watch it." And she credits the work environment that I had there at the clinic, that we had there at the clinic, with changing the course of her life. And I remember talking to Amber and saying, "Amber, I never remember sharing the gospel with you point blank, and that's my fault." But her response to that was, "Yeah, but you made it known that you were a Christian, and then you lived it, and that impacted me." She said, "I had a family that hated God because of past circumstances and people passing away, and I had never met a group of people that claimed it and then lived it, and it intrigued me. So I wanted to investigate it." So just day-to-day living, and we all know we're screw ups, and I'm sure I probably threw a syringe against a wall mad at some point while she was there, and
Sure.
maybe cussed someone out, at some point, but overall it impacted her. So I think, and you don't know you're having that impact. So just be willing, I think, is the biggest thing, and get to know the people that know the people, so that you can hire those people in.
Amen to that. I mean, some of the most impactful things we can do as believers are knowing our mess ups or admitting our mess ups. That consistent living that you're talking about is a witness. Some of the most impactful things I think a picture parenting my dad ever did for me was, apologizing when he did something wrong. I was a kid. He didn't have to apologize to me ever, but he's not perfect either. And he wasn't supposed to put lipstick all over himself and make himself look like he was perfect. I just need to know he was real. His faith was real, and he messed up too. And he apologized when he messed up. Like, wow, like that lesson still hangs with me, So.
And Amber, just to finish that story, is the brightest light in the room now. It's just amazing to see her transformation into someone that everyone loves. And I had her speak for me through her last Reliable Impact, and talked to her like about a week ago. It's a student that I haven't seen. I hadn't seen her student in almost 10 years now, but we still keep up. And she's wanting to go on a mission trip here pretty soon, but and it's thinking about going into vet school, and she'd be great at it. But just the transformation you can see just because you're willing to try to impact students, and she's a success story that I'm thankful to be a part of.
Amen to that. Well, hanging with that, you own 2 clinics. How did you set a culture where you could share, or you could let it be known that your faith was there, and yet, bring in some people like Amber was initially that are very difficult, but you worked her in? What advice would you have for some of our people that are trying to set a culture, whether they own it or whether they're working at corporate? You can still kind of, set a workplace environment. What did you see that was successful in that for you?
So, ownership and being a part of like a corporate setting, or where you're not the owners, are 2 different animals. But whenever we owned the clinic, so before we ever opened the doors, my wife and I went in every room and prayed over that room. We made it a goal to honor the Lord in whatever we did, and that was our goal. Now, that wasn't what we did perfectly again, but that was our goal. And whenever we opened the practice, or started the practice, or hired a new employee, we made it known to them immediately: we're Christians. You don't have to be, but we're going to abide by a set of Christian principles. We're going to love your neighbor. We're not going to talk about people. We're going to treat them fairly with our attitude, with their pocketbook. We're going to do everything we can to honor the Lord and point people towards Christ by our actions and words. And if you're not a Christian, that's fine, but you do have to obey. You do have to obey these certain principles of integrity and honor, and love. And then it was just live it. So I never forced it on anyone. The veterinarians can relate to this. The surgery table is a great place to have conversations, because they're across the table from me. They're monitoring the animal while you're
They're kind of stuck. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. And you can get a little nosy then, ask them how their life's going, and just and try to impact people and take advantage of the opportunities that you get. I just came back from Belize, and we might talk about short-term missions, but the most impactful aspect of that trip for me was the last flight home, where God set it up where I was beside one of the students that went, and we had an hour and a half conversation where, gosh, she was carrying some baggage, and just able just to talk her through that and help her see that she's loved. So just take advantage of opportunities when they come. Just be willing, and that's the hardest part. Sadie Robertson, Duck Dynasty fame, says 5 seconds, calls it the 5 seconds of awkward. Just the initial bring it up aspect. Once you break that ice, it's there. And then you can talk about it.
And you feel that moment. You can almost feel those moments, and you almost have to make that decision of, do I lean in, or do I take that step back?
Right.
Yeah,
and you don't have to force anyone. If God's in it, I've seen this in my lifetime, time again. You just take the next step forward. If you're forcing something, it's all. If I'm forcing something, it's all rocky. If I'm just being willing and obedient to take that next step, not knowing what the next step is, but then the Lord's in it. So it's just that breaking the ice and being willing. So if you're an associate or in corporate, you're a Christian, you can let them know you're a Christian. Nothing against that. And then just be willing to have the opportunity. Amber, again, just texted me last week. she works in an emergency setting, an emergency veterinary setting as a veterinary assistant now. And she, someone started asking her about God last week. She said, I don't know where that came from. Well, I knew where it came from because Amber shines, and it's something that everyone's got a hole in them that only God can feel. So take advantage of those opportunities when they come. So,
amen to that. Well, we are going to touch about Belize, but let's touch on Belize and short-term missions and some other things in our next episode with you. For now, just as we kind of wrap up, we're just grateful to hear, how you work with students, your thoughts on that, and what does that look like to shine in a practice. And all of a sudden, once you shine, and even in your faults, God shines through our faults and our hangups and our apologies and our breakups and all these kind of things. It can be a witness to people, as is in the story to Amber, and then all of a sudden another light at nights that can ignite others, just as we're faithful in there. And so we're grateful for you really sharing about how this came together at the intersection of Two Roads Crossing.
Thank you for listening to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. If you were blessed by this content, like and subscribe so that you are alerted when new content is released. If you would like more information about CVM, or if you have questions, comments, or topical suggestions, you can find us online at www.cvm.org. Or you can contact us by emailing podcast@cvm.org. God has a plan for the nations, and that plan includes you. We pray that CVM has encouraged you to live out your calling with confidence and competence. So, until next time, may the voice of the shepherd ring loud and clear as you follow him in faith to the intersection of Two Roads Crossing.